Mr. Gary Russell Jr., future superstar of boxing. You know, on my channel, I never hate on fighters. I know what it is to be a fighter. I know what you put your body through, the amount of time it takes, the dedication, and the amount of courage and heart it takes. So, you know, I respect Gary Russell Jr. for being a fighter. That's number one. I respect the man for putting gloves on. I respect what he has accomplished in the amateurs. You know, it was an unfortunate situation that he couldn't, you know, go to the Olympics due to being sick. And, you know, I respect him for turning pro after that, for sticking with it. I have a lot of respect for Gary Russell Jr. And I want to start off with the positives before I start criticizing. But just because I'm criticizing doesn't mean I'm hating on him or anything like that. On my channel, I don't hate on fighters. I tell it the way it is. And I think Gary Russell Jr. is a very good talent. I think he's a very good talent, and I think he has a lot of things to work on. I don't see him being a superstar unless he corrects some of these problems. Simple as that. Now, the most eye-catching thing with Gary Russell is obviously his hand speed. And that's what everybody's impressed with. It's his hand speed. This guy's got very fast hands. I don't even think you argue that. More than likely, he probably is the fastest fighter in boxing, at least on the TV that we see that's televised. He is the fastest fighter in boxing, hand speed-wise. Hand speed is not going to win you all your fights. When you step up in the level of competition, it's just not. Andre Berto had very fast hands. I remember seeing Berto step on the scene for the first time going, wow, this guy's hands is very fast. As he stepped up in competition, we seen what happened to him. Amir Khan had very fast hands from the time he stepped foot in the U.S. against Paulie Malignaggi. As he stepped up in competition, we see what happened to him. Now, that's not to say that Amir Khan or Andre Berto are done, because they can still do a lot in boxing and still can be matched up for a lot of exciting fights. But as far as being superstars and reaching the pinnacle, the superstardom only goes so far. They're not going to be these mega superstars that when they first came out, they were made out to be. Gary Russell Jr., obviously, he's got the right connections. You know, this is a guy that was supposed to go to the Olympics and compete. He's got the right connections. And I don't know how the fuck he got on HBO that early. I just don't know how a guy gets on HBO that early. 8 rounders. I believe it was a main event. That's just crazy. I don't know if it was a main event or not. Don't get me lying. But for the fact that he's on HBO, and he's been on Showtime too before, it's just crazy. And I believe he has had main events where he was the main event. I don't know. Hey, you know, that's boxing, man. You know, some people got the spoon, some people don't. But Gary Russell has been a pro, I believe, since he was, 17 years old? I think in his late 17s, closer to his 18th birthday, he turned pro. Guy's 25 years old now. He's got 22 fights. When will he step up in competition, okay? Every time the fight's over, they say, well, you know, 1 or 2 more fights. 1 or 2 more fights. I'm like, the fans, even if you're a fan of Gary Russell Jr., tell me you're not tired of hearing that shit, man. 1 or 2 more fights before he steps up in competition. 1 or 2 more fights. Okay. You can decide the pace at which your career moves at. If you want your career to move that slow, that's fine. But I'm so sick of people. Like, people are actually believe that Gary Russell Jr. is better than Abner Mares. First of all, the resumes, it's not even a comparison. You don't even compare this prospect to this world champion. You just don't. This guy hasn't fought one legit dude yet. It's disrespectful to even compare Gary Russell Jr. to Abner Mares. It's disrespectful to put the two names together. It is in my book, because what has Gary Russell Jr. done? He's nothing but a prospect. He hasn't fought one legit opponent yet. Now I'm going to get into critiquing him. This guy has hand speed, and that's about it. Berto had hand speed. Amir Khan had hand speed. Manny Pacquiao at one time had blinding hand speed, if he still doesn't. Tim Bradley's got decent hand speed. You know, Gary Russell is flat-footed. Okay, he's a southpaw. He's flat-footed. His stance is too wide. He leans most of his body weight off of that lead foot. That right foot, he leans most of his body weight off of it, which isn't good. His jab comes a lot of times from his waist side. He's in that Roy Jones style posture of fighting. He ain't no Roy Jones. I don't even think he possesses I don't even think he possesses half the power that Roy Jones once had. I just don't think so. You know, he's not knocking out everybody that's a no-name. So imagine when he steps up in the level of competition. I don't see him having devastating power. I just don't. He's already, at 130? I would expect that before his career is over, he moves up a couple more weight classes, at least up to lightweight. And this guy is small. He's 5'5". Some sites got him listed as 5'4". So I really don't know how tall dude is, but he's 5'5" at least, and his reach is only 61 inches. Now, I'm going to compare him to a smaller fighter, right? Like Tim Bradley. Tim Bradley's 5'6", and Tim Bradley's reach is 69 inches. That's an 8-inch difference. That means Gary Russell has got fucking dwarf arms, man. He's got some short-ass arms, like Gamboa. Dude's small. Like, and speaking of Gamboa, I respect Gamboa. I was always more impressed with Gamboa when he was at 126 than I've ever been impressed with Gary Russell Jr. I don't understand where this hype's coming from. And these high expectations are coming from a guy that's flat-footed, wide stance, has very fast hands, but that's about it. His countering ability needs to be worked on a lot, because a lot of times when you got Gary Russell Jr. against the ropes, he's got good defense. He'll put both his guards up. That's when he'll put his two guards up, and he'll try to counter off that. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen this guy hit air trying to counter. Throws wide punches when he's trying to counter with them hooks, and hits nothing but air. Nothing but air. He's not that sharp of a counter puncher yet. He has to work on that. He has to stop his stance from being so wide, and he can't lean most of his body weight over that lead right foot, because that's just not good. That's just not good. That's bad balance in the making. Now, give it or take, this guy is a great athlete. That's easy to see. Gary Russell is an athletic fighter. He's an athletic fighter, and he's relying a lot right now on his speed. He's just relying a lot right now on his speed. Because it's not like Gary Russell times his opponents, or Gary Russell is outboxing his opponents. Like he's got this all-around great skill set that he's showing in the ring. Nah, that's why when you compare, even forget about resume, even talk about Abner Mares and Gary Russell Jr. Man, Abner Mares may be a brawler, but Abner Mares has some damn good boxing skill too. And at first I was very, very low on Abner Mares because I wasn't feeling his dirty style of boxing. And that's not even to say that that's gone away totally, but I have seen Abner Mares win some fights very clean. But he's got a history of being a dirty fighter, and that don't sit well with me either. I'm not like no big on Abner Mares, but I'm just putting right with right here. To compare Abner Mares to Gary Russell Jr. is disrespectful. You're talking about a guy that actually has boxing skills, that actually can move on his toes way more than I seen Gary Russell Jr. Be on his toes. I always see Gary Russell Jr. flat-footed. Going back to Timothy Bradley is a guy that's not great and probably doesn't have the power that Gary Russell Jr. has at featherweight, but still, the thing with Tim Bradley is he all around he does things very good. You know, he's on his toes, he's got enough hand speed. He might not be as fast as Gary Russell Jr., but he's got enough hand speed to say that you gotta look out for his hands. He's been faster than 80% of his opponents. You know, He's on his toes. He can move around the ring. He can box. He can fight on the outside. He can fight on the inside. He can fight from mid-range. Gary Russell Jr. only walks down his opponents. Okay, I haven't seen him like outbox anybody from the outside. He's a walk you down, flat-footed, wide stance fighter in the wrong posture. It ain't no Roy Jones to be throwing your jab from your waist-side. I just don't like seeing that shit. And then when he throws that power lead left, he doesn't bring it back to his chin always. You know, he throws punches like fundamental stuff he does wrong. Fundamental stuff he does wrong. Like throwing that power left straight and not bringing it back to your chin. Throwing that jab from your waist side to begin with and not bringing it back to your chin. Several things he's doing fundamentally wrong. Leaning your body weight over your lead foot is not only going to give you stamina problems when you step up to 12-round fights, it's going to make it easy for a counterpuncher to hit you or perhaps even uppercut you. What happens when he runs into somebody that has speed? Might not have as much speed as him since he's got the fastest hands in the sport. And we don't know that for a fact because every fighter is not televised and we haven't seen every fighter in the world. But to our knowledge, as far as televised fighters go, he's got the fastest hands we ever seen. And his hands are fast. They're very fast. But very fast hands doesn't win you every single fight. There's a lot of guys that are proof of that. So, you know, Gamboa had fast hands, you know. And it seems that, of course, he's going up in weight, and it seems like he's, you know, and being inactive, but he stepped up in competition as well. And hasn't looked as super as he's had. Although I feel the weights plays a lot of part in that. Gary Russell Jr. is small, man. Like I said, a dude that's 5'4", 5'5", whatever he is, a 61-inch reach, very short hands, and he's fighting as if he's Roy Jones Jr. He's a guy, I know he's very athletic, but he ain't no Roy Jones Jr., not even close to be breaking these type of fundamentals in the game. Gary Russell Jr. doesn't even have no head movement like that. That's another thing. He's got decent defense because he's got quick feet to move out the way. And he can shell up when he has to. But he's not that sharp of a counterpuncher. Okay, that's number one. He's breaking a lot of fundamentals that he shouldn't be breaking. He's too flat-footed, and a lot of times when he's trying to finish you, he squares up. I'm not impressed with Gary Russell Jr. at all. I don't know where this hype's coming from, and I don't know how you're comparing them to guys that have legit resumes, that have been there, that have got the experience level. That's just crazy to me, man. Leave me your thoughts, like always. That's crazy to me. Slideways 100, I'm out.
Well, in that second round, Castaneda landed 14 punches. Against Gary Russell, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So that makes you think if Castaneda was able to land some punches, you know, what's going to happen when Russell steps it up in competition?
It's a great point because we're waiting for him to step it up in terms of competition.